You're on Team Human, conscious intervention in the machine, an opportunity to stop the worst symptoms of runaway capitalism in their tracks and foster the coming age of sharing. That's right, we're talking about mutual aid, or what Peter Thiel refers to as the work of the Antichrist. Is sharing really evil? Let's find out. I'm Douglas Rushkoff, and I'm on Team Human. Playing for Team Human today, the executive director of my favorite mutual aid information network, Shareable.net, Tom Llewellyn. Tom and his team have just released the Library of Things Toolkit, a comprehensive guide to starting and growing a sharing hub in your own community, which answers the most frequent email I get from Team Human listeners, which is, what can I do right now? Well, today we've got the answer. I'm Douglas Rushkoff, and in case you didn't know, we're all on Team Human. Well, I'm delighted to introduce you to Tom Llewellyn, Executive Director of Shareable.net, which has been my go-to resource for research, tools, insights on the sharing economy, as well as the first place I turn when I want my writing to reach real people who respond in earnest to actionable ideas. Tom and Leanna Frick and Paige Kelly just released the Library of Things Toolkit, which look at this. A guide to what I believe is the highest leverage point available to communities right now to defeat the twin dragons of capitalism and environmental decline.
Yeah, thanks for having me on Team Human. So glad to be here.
So yay, Library of Things Toolkit. So here's the thing. It seemed to me, and maybe I was young when I was thinking about the sort of middle school insight of when I found out what capitalism was and how there's all these sort of rentier classes extracting value from the ones below. I started to think, what would happen if people shared? What's so bad with that? What's so wrong with that? But now, when in conferences and stuff, I do talk about people sharing stuff like lawnmowers and drills and whatever. Then someone always gets up and says, well, you're going to crash the fucking economy. That you can't just share because there's people that are depending on the stocks and the dividends and all that and the growth and the GDP, and the whole thing's going to collapse. Which is why, and I get it, people like Peter Thiel would say that you and this book, which is trying to help people to make Library of Things, is the Antichrist.
It's pretty heavy.
Right.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing, the idea that we have to prop up this pyramid scheme of an economy by taking, making, and wasting resources at a historic rate, that if we don't do that, everything's going to fall around and it's going to be our fault for sharing.
Yeah.
And yet that's the thing that's so innate to community. One of the things that I really love about things is that they are inherently shareable, that we don't need a drill that only gets used for 15 minutes in its entire life cycle for most people. We don't need to have that at our house. Like, why not have that at a central sharing hub where everybody can have access to it?
Well, because there could be germs on the handle.
I suppose.
Someone could break it, and then who's responsible if someone breaks it?
Yeah.
I mean, there's all these things to be figured out.
And they all have been figured out. That's the thing. I know, right? Farmers have been sharing equipment for millennia.
Really?
Yeah. I was just in Belgium where there's 100 of these baby libraries. Not for libraries for borrowing babies, but for buying all the equipment you might need. They're spread out all over the city.
To take care of babies.
Yeah.
Even like a milking machine or whatever.
Milking machine or a side sleeper or car seats or strollers, what have you.
All right, let me just get this straight here. So I have a baby. And I at the beginning, I put it in a side sleeper, right? It sleeps in there and stuff. You're saying that when I'm done with the side sleeper, I can then give it to someone else who has a baby.
I don't think we need a single additional stroller to get made at this
So a
point in time.
second baby could go in the stroller afterward.
So that's just one example. I mean,
what if a wheel breaks? Could you replace the wheel
absolutely,
on it?
Yeah,
And
it's so much cheaper to replace a single wheel than an entire.
It's like replacing the button on a shirt.
Yeah,
rather than getting a whole new shirt.
Yeah, you can go to a. I know, right?
All right. I'm kind of getting it.
But that's just the beginning. I mean, these formalized tool libraries have been around since 1978 in Cleveland, Ohio. The longest running one has been in Berkeley since 1979. Started independently as like a community mutual aid project, ended up getting incorporated into the public library system in 1990, and it's been going strong ever since.
So you'd be basically libraries where people can get tools and stuff.
Yeah.
Like I need a lathe because I'm going to lathe something, but I don't really need my own lathe. I could just
use it and then come get it another time. I mean, when we started, so I was co-founder of the Asheville Tool Library in North Carolina.
You see, that's the kind of place that tool libraries happen.
They happen
Good,
everywhere, though.
Landy, permaculture.
Sure, that's one. It's very welcome to it, but they're all over the place. There's over 2,000 at this point in time. But when we started the one in Asheville, we put out a call and we got hundreds of tools donated from people that didn't want to store them in their closets anymore, in their garages, and said, hey, I'd rather pay you $50, $100, $150 a year to have access to 2,000 tools and even get the tool back that I need that I'm donating. Oh,
Is that
absolutely.
really what happens? So in theory, if there was one in New York, and there might be, right?
Yes, but it's difficult to access.
It's more difficult. But the idea would be, so like the radiator in my office at Queens College leaked and left this giant stain in the carpet. And I was thinking, what would be cool is to have a carpet steamer to get that stain out of there.
Yeah.
But where do you get a carpet steamer? And then it's like I could spend this money to go to like Home Depot or something and do a whole thing.
And a whole bunch of that the amount of money leaves the community. I mean, it's funny that you bring up a carpet steamer. So we've just this last year been working with Connect Community, which is a community quarterback organization as part of the Purpose-Built Communities Network, based in Houston, Texas. They're in Gulfton, Texas. And Gulfton, the neighborhood they refer to it as the Ellis Island of Texas. It's got 4 refugee resettlement organizations in a single district. There's over 90 languages spoken in this small area.
God, it sounds like it was going to be an ice marine landing there. And
that's definitely worrying. Yeah. I mean, that's now the funding's going away for these refugee resettlement organizations. The support networks that is welcoming newcomers in there is a lot more difficult this year than it has been before. But we worked with the team down there to build in a Library of Things into a new housing development. And there was 6 commercial spaces put in there. They have a textile studio, like whole workshop, like micro manufacturing space in that building. And one of these 6 street-facing commercial spaces is the Library of Things. And the first thing that we did when the new residents moved in January, February, was to do a needs assessment. And the number one thing they asked for was a carpet cleaner. We never would have chosen that ourselves, but the reason being that there's a high percentage of residents in there are Afghan refugees. And Afghani folks spend a lot of time on the floor, a lot of time on their carpets. And so they want to keep that clean. They don't have a lot of them don't have cars to be able to even drive somewhere like a big box store to be able to get one and bring it back. So we've got it right there in the building for them to check out.
I mean, and then it's like, this is what defeats people who think we're talking about communism, right? So this is basically you could call it almost a market-derived common solution, right? So you're looking at what does the market need and then supplying it in a community way rather than some Politburo counting the number of toothbrushes you think people are going to need when they're flossers and not brushers.
Yep. I mean, and the other thing, so there's an environment, there's like kind of the social access aspect, right? And we just mentioned that, like people that wouldn't be able to afford that cleaner now have access to that cleaner.
Right.
Sporting equipment have access to that sporting equipment. Large cooking equipment have access to that cooking equipment, right? And most tool libraries of things have sliding scale memberships, or they give a certain amount of discounted or free memberships to people that need them. So there's an equity piece.
And it's also the insurance piece of it. I mean, part of the reason you can't get a carpet cleaner, even rental, is if your credit rating isn't good enough for them to let you even take it out of the building.
Boom. So then the next piece is so environmental, right? So I mentioned like the average power drill gets used only 15 minutes in its entire life cycle.
I know, and I always talk about the children going in the mines to get the rare earth metal for the friggin' thing, and the one on the other end in Brazil picking it out for that little piece. And
and the 70% or 70 to 90% of industrial waste that you don't ever even see for the manufacturing process, like all of that, right? So we can move through that right there. And then the other piece that people really don't talk about enough is that there actually is an economic development aspect of these libraries and tool libraries. When I was interviewing the Oakland Tool Library as we were developing the one in Nashville, they've got 25 weed whackers, they had 15 hedge trimmers, and they've got a bunch of young, new tradespeople are checking out tools. They don't have to buy them to begin with, and they're able to do their work. They don't have to take out, terrible payday, lending, high interest loans to be able to get the tools to be able to start their trades. And then once they're able to build up their trade, it's not as efficient to have to rely on the library for all your things. So people buy their own tools. But to begin with, they're able to get direct access to those.
Right, so they can sort of bootstrap their business until so now it's rather than needing capital, hey, Uncle Louie, I'm going to start a landscaping business. Well, how do I know it's going to be good? And all that thing. It's like, I need a lawnmower and a weed whacker and a thing. So at least you start out, right, it's 3, 4, 5 weeks of doing it, you got enough to get your first tools.
And then the other aspect is that when people have their own tools, they're more likely to buy from the local True Value or Ace Hardware, the local business, than they are to go to the big box store. So if you hire a contractor or somebody else, they're going to the big box store. If you're doing it yourself, you're going to go to the local hardware store and get the things that you need. So again, we didn't want to threaten the local businesses when we moved into Asheville. And so we went to the Ace Hardware and said, hey, we want to support you. Give us a $5 or a $10 voucher. We'll give one to everybody who gets a membership, and then they'll go and buy the stuff they need, the drill bits, the screws, the paint, whatever it is they're getting, and they'll maintain that relationship. And so we're not undercutting you. We're working in tandem.
Right. I mean, but they pay the $5.
Sure, yeah. But then they get the business that comes in. It's a lost leader for them.
Right. And it's cheaper than Home Depot Circular or whatever it is
that's coming through that time.
Exactly.
So, yes, there's definitely like a mutual aid aspect to this. There's definitely alternative economies circumventing the capitalist structures that are there. And also, we don't have to undercut our local economies.
Right. And it's a good thing is library is a much easier metaphor for Americans to accept than dirty, scary words like cooperative or commons. Because what we're really talking about is commonsing, industrial resources for distributive economics, right? So the workers own the means of production. It's like, oh, don't go there. It's like the library, even though if we explained to people what a library is today, they would run screaming in horror, right? Wait a minute, you're not... What about the authors? What about the books? What about the publishers? It would make no sense to a modern, but it's there. It's extant. So we can say, oh, it's just like a tool library instead of a book library. Oh, you mean I just check it? Oh, yeah, I can do that. It makes sense, especially for something I really am not going to buy, like a 3D printer or
what have you. I mean, and today, libraries are the most trusted public institution that there is, right? So for the most part,
interesting. It's the last one left.
It is. They're a third space, right? There's where people gather. They have a long history of positive experiences. But right now also, like, libraries are where the social workers are, right? Like, they're playing so many different roles within their own communities. So we found it really exciting that there's a whole wave of libraries around the U.S. and internationally which are adding collections of things. We think we need them all different places. We need them in the housing developments. We need them on the university campuses. We're working on that too. But we also need the alternatives. So like last year, Hurricane Helene came through and it was devastating across Western North Carolina. And the Tool Library was one of the primary response organizations. They've got 2,000 members. They've got 3,000 some odd tools. And they've got this whole network of people that knew that that's a community space they could go to get the things they needed to work on their homes, to repair things. In the immediate aftermath, it became a mutual aid hub where people were finding out different resources that were available. They worked with mutual aid disaster relief and the Western North Carolina Repair Cafe, and to get resources out. And then all of a sudden, people are ordering chainsaws on Amazon, having never used one before, injuring themselves, breaking them, what have you. So then they're teaching workshops. They're teaching people how to safely use these tools, in the post-disaster cleanup, how to sharpen the chainsaw, the whole thing, right? So then, and that work wouldn't have been possible within a public institution like a public library, like that mutual aid, just anarchists, we're going to just do it because it what needs to be done. So we need all these different angles to be able to meet the needs.
And plus the existence of the tool library, I mean, it requires and engenders a resilient community. So you don't realize it until you need it, that, oh, look at this. Over the last 2 years of having this tool library and all these relationships and all these people who know these different things, now we are so much more prepared because, oh, who is it? Oh, Jerry's always working with sandbags, right? Yeah, let's call him up for this. Or these folks have taken out these tools all these times. They're going to know how to use those ones. But I mean, and those are really crude examples of the kind of the fabric of interactions and relationship that gets set up. You just think of it even in terms of the library. When you think about who read to your kids, where did they hang out? Where do you go if your heating is out? We're going to go to the,
warming
the
center.
space, right? A warming center. It's like, and they got DVDs and we know this kid and the library already knows your kids. So you can go and dig your house out of the mud and she's already read to them 6 times. It's like, oh, isn't it great? I was bringing little Johnny here on Thursday afternoons because now he's not afraid when he's sitting here. All these kind of these benefits you can't even predict start to come into play. Advertising is an evil science. I know this. It was created to get people to buy plastic stuff they don't need that they're going to throw out and destroy the planet. But this is different. The stuff at everyone's earth is not plastic. You don't throw it out. You don't consume it. You actually regenerate along with it. These are dryer sheets. They also make laundry buds. And the idea of this stuff is that it's grown organically from the land in totally natural ways. It's manufactured without waste and pollution and all that toxic crap. And then you use it in a way where it just biodegrades into the regenerative natural world in which we all thrive. So this is not an ad because we're not telling you how to hurt yourself and the planet. This is an informational segment that is helping educate us all in how to get along with each other and the world that we're sharing. I want to go back to something you were talking about at the very beginning, which is like the thingness of tools. So we're moving into a world, this is sort of the stuff I write about, which is increasingly abstract, right? It's more about files and downloads and all this stuff.
Intangible,
And the more intangible things get, the more kind of dominated by IP, by intellectual property and licenses that they get. There's no way for me to share my app with someone else. I can share my content as long as they get the app, but everything's so individual and everybody's got their subscription and their thing and their thumbprint and all. I mean, I was even, as you were talking, imagining some of these tools, like in order to buy it at the best price from some chain, it's going to be like tied to my identity. I'll need my thumbprint to turn the thing on. And if I don't pay whatever bill, an annual thing, it's not even work. Or because you got cars and the tractors and the John Deere stuff and the AI and they're moving that way with stuff too.
All over. Yeah, it's hardware as a service.
Hardware as service. I know. Isn't that fucked up? But it's like the tool library is kind of working against that.
It's an antidote. Yeah, absolutely. It shows another way. You have the tool in your hand. You can understand where it came from. You can understand it's a really interesting portal into sharing in general. Like I had an opportunity a few years ago, got invited out to one of the larger suburbs of Paris, the city of Montreuil, and they had read our book, Sharing Cities, Activating the Commons. One of the local organizers there, they translated into French and invited me out for the release. And as part of that, they hosted a full-day sharing summit, local urban commons summit. The chief resilience officer for the city of Paris, all these different city officials, local collectives and nonprofits, what have you. We had a full day, and the next day, there was a citywide sharing festival where there was 150 activities across 75 locations. Like even, what they would refer to as the slums. Like we're hosting activities up there and all open houses and shut down streets all over the place. And it all culminated in the city square for a big concert. But on the eve of all this, on the Friday night before this big weekend, I got invited to go to dinner with the mayor. And it was the mayor and then this other organizer, Sylvain, that had organized that had brought me out there and done all this work. And he was like, all right, I love all this sharing stuff. It's what we need in the city, but help me figure out how we're going to convince everybody to actually participate. What is it that's going to get people to get going? So we started talking about the history of Monterey, and it was the breadbasket of Paris. And even now there's these amazing stone-walled gardens like all over the city in the hills where they're able to grow fruit trees and other things that wouldn't otherwise grow there for the climate. But because of the big stone walls, they capture the heat and reflect it back. And that's still working now, but it's not the same production level. Then they got industrialized. Then they got de-industrialized. And the city's kind of still trying to figure out like what is its identity, right? And so hearing this history, I was like, I'm a little biased, but I think you need to start a tool library. I think you need to put the tools of sharing into people's hands, people that are used to having things in their hands. And so the next day we're at the summit. I give my talk. We're in this like 60 people in 2 concentric circles. Like it's very egalitarian. Yeah. Everyone gets in the middle and talks to everybody else. And the mayor missed my talk. And so he came to give the final remarks at the end of the day. And he walks in the middle of the circle and he looks around, he finds me and he said, hey, Tom, did you talk about that tool library idea? And I was like, I didn't. And he stood there for like, I swear, 60 seconds in the middle of this group of 60 people, of all of his colleagues and all this whole thing, just contemplating, as comfortable as could be. And after about 60 seconds of thinking, it felt like forever, he says, we're going to start a tool library. And then he starts outlining all of the benefits and all of the things that I had said over dinner the night before that was going to be really good, explaining why they were going to do it. And then he turns and he says, and Sylvain's going to run it. And Sylvain's like, oh, wait a second. I thought we were just talking ideas last night. Well, they've done it, right? And they've now, in Monterey, the city ended up offering up this old, like 600 square meter, 3-story medical building. And what started, and the tool library folks were like, hey, we can't fill that, but we can try to bring in some partners to make it a hub.
Right.
And that's what they've done. So now there's a wood shop, there's a photography studio, there's music recording and rehearsal studio, there's a textile studio, artist residencies, event space, workshop. And they've got a permanent repair cafe, which is open 2 days a week where anybody can book a 30-minute slot and have help fixing their appliances or what have you, circumventing that planned obsolescence. They also have this amazing thing, which is a U.S. patent that got let go of, a French research team picked up, and they're able to recharge disposable alkaline batteries, 200 alkaline batteries a day. And anybody from the city can come in with 4 AA or AAA or whatever batteries and walk away with 4 recharged alkaline batteries. Like this incredible circular economy like station, right? So these things scale, people get it, and now that project has gotten so popular in the last few years that it's going to expand to 20 locations across 9 of the cities in Northeast Paris. So what started as a little idea over dinner, talking about what have you, like can grow and play a major role in getting people access to the things that they need wherever they are in the community.
Right. The economic implications are we do end up buying less stuff.
Yep.
And ultimately, if you think it through, sure, so the companies will need to make less stuff. And if they need to make less stuff, then they need us fewer days a week.
Yep.
It's more like the companies lay people off and there's more out-of-work people hoping the tool library closes so that the factory needs to hire me to make more things that people don't use.
I mean, I'd say that's pretty rare since most of our manufacturing is in other countries at this point in time.
Right. So we don't lose a job.
I don't think we lose a job for that at that point. So I mean, this whole system, and what?
So
the people making
some Chinese child loses an enslaved.
That's all getting mechanized, though, right? Like, I mean, these people were going to be laid off anyways because there's going to be robots that are going to be manufacturing these things. So whose job is being lost for this, right? The robot's job? I hope so. I'm on Team Human.
Right. Well, maybe the dividends of the stock dividends from the tool company and the old lady who's depending on them will have less money. But hopefully, what I keep arguing is she'll be in a community of people who are sharing stuff and much more likely to take care of her.
So the old adage, people know, a penny saved is a penny earned, right? Early on in my life, I flipped that on its head and I said, a penny saved is a penny that I don't have to earn. Right. And that's what's allowed me to do this activism work I've done for the last 20 years is by living super cheaply, sharing resources wherever I go. I love your story about the idea of borrowing the drill, right? To put up the poster on the wall. And I mean, that's been my experience my entire life, growing up in small communities. Even when I moved to the city, I go knock on the neighbor's door and say, what's up? And it takes a certain amount of vulnerability to do that.
Right.
But then, great example. Falls right in line with that story of yours, but I moved into a new community about 3 years ago. In the mountains, there's about 40 households on our street. We pave the roads together and maintain the road. It's an unincorporated part of the county. It's not an intentional community, but there's a community listserv. And the first night I'm staying over in the place, it was a wreck. We got this house that hadn't been maintained in 30 years. And I showed up there a weekend or two after the previous owners had moved out, sleeping on the floor. And that night, I go around, I brought some stuff over the course of a couple of weeks, and I discovered that a bunch of the things I brought were stolen. Were taken out of the storage shed and different things like that. And I was not expecting that in the community. I was feeling pretty. I was like, this sucks.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's people that have lots of fences all over the place. I was like, maybe this is a different community than I thought I was moving into. And I had a horrible night's sleep. Next day, I go and I raise rabbits for meat. And so I had all my rabbit cages on the back of my pickup truck, and I couldn't unload them myself. And so what am I going to do? I'm going to have to go find a neighbor down the block. Oh,
There's multiple
big wooden cages.
With multiple bunnies per cage.
Yeah.
Okay.
And, and they're like made out of 4x4s and like big, sturdy, houses. And so I was like, well, I guess I'll go find a neighbor, just move right here. And so I walked down the block and I saw someone taking their garbage out to the road or bringing their garbage can back in, whatever it was. And I said, hey, I just moved down the street. And they invited me into their yard, and there was a couple of other people there. And I said, hey, nice to meet you. Hey, I got this cage on the back of my truck, and could you guys come and help me unload it? And they're like, yeah, sure, we can walk over now. I was like, well, give me 15 minutes. I got to go unstrap it and the whole thing. So I walked over, unstrapped it, came back, and I came over, and they were trying to remove some posts that were in concrete from an old fence or something that was on the property, and they were struggling. I said, hey, you want me to jump in and help?
Yeah.
So I jumped in and helped pull out these posts, and they walked over and helped me unload the truck. And all of a sudden, like all that anxiety that I'd had from that night before where I've been ripped off, I was like, okay, this is all right.
And then
I can actually be here.
The next day you saw your tools and stuff in one of their garages.
It turned out that the previous owners had told this tweaker that they were friends with that he could come and take a couple of things on the property. And this guy had ripped out our sump pump from underneath the house. He'd taken everything. We finally actually recovered it all. It took me 3 months, and I got everything back. And also he gave me a bunch more stuff that I didn't want. But so it all worked out. But just not only did I immediately build a relationship, not only did I immediately not only offer something to my neighbor, but receive something at the same time, just having that comforted me and reduced my anxiety of the place that I was in and kind of washed away those feelings that I was like, oh, this is, false advertising. This community was false advertising that I came into, right?
Right.
And it just makes a huge difference. But, shortly after that, I had a big trench. We had to rerun our electric lines. Reran the electric lines. I needed to pack back that in. I put an email on our community listserv, which fortunately we have, asking for a tamper. 5 people wrote back and said, I've got a tamper. Then a 6th person messaged me. He was like, I know you've been offered tampers, but I've got a gas-powered one, and I think you want mine. And I was like, yes, I do.
Well, competing for who gets to lend you
who can lend the thing, right? And because people feel good about it.
You guys send the lending is so much easier than the borrowing.
But then, a few weeks later, a woman down the street comes driving my yard, and her car is smoking. Her hood is on fire, and she comes running out, and she's like, "Can you help me?" And I ran and I get a fire extinguisher. And she was like, I usually go to the neighbor down the street, but it seemed like I could maybe come down to you because I had already extended this request, for something, right? Another neighbor down the road, like a little while after that, who's now become a super good friend, a tree came down and blocked their driveway and said, hey, help, we're stuck. And I grabbed my chainsaw and I went down and cut them out. And now they're super close friends.
Right. I mean, the easy way to get somebody to feel okay about asking for something from you is to ask something from them first.
Yep. Which, it's wild. Like even people that want to help each other, want to be in community, have a fear of asking for support, right? There's like this false conflation between financial debt and social debt. And this even comes up, you familiar with time banks?
Oh, yeah.
That for those that don't know, time banks are just like a normal bank, but instead of money, it's time. Like people sign up for, say, hey, I've got plumbing skills, or I'll drive people to medical appointments, or I'm a massage therapist, or what have you. And people offer up their skills to their community. And then when somebody does an exchange, it's 1 hour for 1 hour. And it's not a direct barter either. You get a massage from Jane and Ellie is helping you with your plumbing, and then you're helping Daryl, with his father who needs some help to get to a medical appointment, right? So it's not a direct barter. It's like, oh, we're just going to do this community offering all over the place. The number one complaint I get from people that are leaving time banks unhappy, it's like, I was in this time bank for 4 years and nobody asked me to do a single thing. Like, this system doesn't work. The first thing I always ask is, well, did you ask other people for help? And they say, no. I didn't join the time bank because I needed help. I joined the time bank because I wanted to help other people, right? And so it requires this vulnerageousness, right? You got to be vulnerable and courageous and willing to put yourself out there first for the system to work.
And you have to consider whether the thing that you want to offer is what other people want.
That too. And a lot of people will put up like 2 or 3 things they're willing to offer the other people
because
in
in
the
many
community.
cases, the thing people are offering is actually the thing they should be paying for.
Yeah. Which could be, but I mean, these platforms are a means to a beginning, not to a means for an end. Like, you're trying to rebuild these relationships that were like the village relationships that you knew you could go to. Like, I grew up in a small community of 225 people. We refer to a semi-autonomous, unintentional community in the woods outside of Oakland, California, that people don't know about it all over the place. And I just kind of outed it. But, where we pay,
Palantir is heard.
Yeah, I know, right? There's 7 or a handful of water cooperatives, some of which have been around since early 1900s, that people are members of. We have our own community governance system, and we paved our own roads as we grew up. As a 10-year-old, I'd save my funky shoes every year because I knew paving day was coming up, and I'd be out there with an asphalt rake, right? But then I'd also be riding on that road with my bicycle and my go-kart, and I'd be hanging out in the middle of the road under the stars with my friends, right? The road was a commons, and I was a part of making it be the thing that it was. But so growing up in a place like that, my friend's mom was my doctor when I didn't have health insurance, right? And I went over and I tore my patellar tendon, and I was like, what do I do? Well, I go to Gabe's mom. And, and so not everybody has those relationships built in, which is why technology like a time bank can be really helpful. It's to kind of fill that gap.
Right. And you would hope that it's actually also a means to an end, that eventually you don't even need the bank.
Exactly.
You're just living. You liberate from the
But then
scorecard.
to go back to, what the implications of that is on society and on capitalism, like, it can be pretty heavy. I mean, there's people argue and say, oh, it's just a small little thing on the edge, what is this? Is this really a solution to the big problems that we have? It's incredibly subversive in a way. So I know an organizer who was in Istanbul. Istanbul had the largest time bank in the world, 40,000 members, right? So these things can scale up to be really big. 40,000 people who said that they want to help other people in their community. When I was first talking to them, I was like, you've got a political block. Like, this is huge. Like, think about what else you can do to leverage these 40,000 people that stepped up, that say they want to be sharing, right? And be living in a different economy. Well, the government took notice of that as well. And they brought this lead organizer in for questioning and, said that she had been involved, claimed that she was the leader of some really huge protests that were across in like 2015, I think, all across Turkey and everything, which she wasn't involved in, but then brought up Charles Eisenstein and the gift economy and the time bank and the whole thing. And they held her for 24 hours of questioning in the gulag. Right. And then got released on a temporary.
To get a lesson in circular economics.
Yeah. But then, a temporary release, and word got out, a friend of a friend who was in the military and said, hey, if you don't get out of here now, they're going to take you away forever tomorrow.
Right.
And she had to escape on the cover of darkness and has been living in asylum outside of Turkey ever since, because how dangerous these alternative economic systems are to the dominant economic systems of control. It's pretty wild. And that was one of the things, that people are starting to grapple with. I mean, especially in the mutual aid space, right? And at the same time that we have this great need for mutual aid because of the lack of social services, the lack of government funding, all of these social safety net being gutted, like we need these mutual aid networks more than ever, and yet that is the rise, that's the new Antichrist, is really the Christ-like behavior of community support. Right? It's like there's like this disconnect is so wild.
Right. Well, the Christ's life was one of charity and giving and helping other people, but they're focusing more on what they see as his ascension.
Yeah.
And his ascension was more of an Ayn Rand, Superman thing. And if somebody needs a drill, if you lend it to them, you're weakening them because they're not doing what it takes to be able to buy one for themselves. They're not strengthening their it's sort of, I think that's kind of the idea. Yeah. And these Ubermensches have become so strong by working. They're almost strong enough to make it to the next level, right? And we're going to start distributing resources and suck the life out of these ascended saints.
Pull the carpet out from underneath them. Yeah, let's do it.
Right. And let's have fun. And let's have fun while we do. So what's the first step?
I mean, that's a good one. One, I just kind of said asking a neighbor for help in whatever it is, even if it's the most minor thing, asking for some amount of support and being the first one to take that step.
Just to start the conversation. Can I borrow a paper clip?
Yeah. Whatever it is, super low barrier. Yeah. That's the first thing. I mean, we see little free libraries all over the place, right? Like that's a sign of people saying, hey, we want to connect with our neighbors in some way. We've got something. All right, we're going to create some sort of a shared experience connection. It's a really small way. Like at Shareable, we produced over 350 how-to guides on how to start different community sharing initiatives, right? And we just went through and winnowed, it's been 16 years we've been doing this work, and we just winnowed them down to our top 50 from that period of time. And there's things like setting up an internet mesh network. I mean, that's another thing. Like in my community that I grew up in, we had a 3-room schoolhouse, a public school, and a post office, right? And AT&T, Comcast, they refused to run high-speed internet to our community because it wasn't, financially,
it's not worth it. There's like 6 of you. Screw it.
And so, but they were forced to send it to the public school. So one of the parents in the community was a techie. And he said, all right, let's set up an internet mesh network, and ran wires and wireless, repeaters. And we set up an internet mesh network throughout the entire community coming off the school. And once the infrastructure was paid off, he was like, I don't want to make money off of this. I just want this thing to exist. We all still had a monthly bill, but instead of paying Comcast and having to lead the community, we made a monthly contribution to our public school and supported it that way, right? So it's community supporting infrastructure that we're benefiting as a community, and also all the kids in the school now needed the internet to do their homework. They're able to do that work at home, and they're able to keep up with their studies. There's all these different benefits that you wouldn't normally see, and we're keeping it within the ecosystem, but utilizing an available resource that was an underutilized resource, but utilizing to its great extent. So we've got a how-to guide on how to set up an internet mesh network.
And did you get sued for that? Because sometimes the providers get upset. There was one lawsuit, I think Verizon sued a community on the grounds that the community, because the community lived where they were trying to provide their own access, they had an unfair advantage over the corporation.
Yeah. We did not get sued, but I mean, there's great examples. I mean, there's in Freiburg, they've got an amazing internet mesh network. In Barcelona, Guifinet, it's been around for a long time, right?
And now they're putting up some local AI instances on local mesh networks. so that you don't have to use the giant frontier
Yeah,
models.
yep.
They create their own.
Bring their, yeah.
And then they use the local library as the data
Center.
data center for it.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh my gosh, it's getting fun now.
Yeah. I mean, man, data centers. That's one of the other things we do is we do a lot of work with rural electric cooperatives. And I don't know if you're familiar with the networks. I mean, there's 42 million people nationwide that are member owners of their electric utility that have governance rights over the electric utility. This goes back to the 1930s. 1935, only 10% of rural communities had electricity because it wasn't profitable for these electric companies to run lines out to those areas.
Yeah.
And so FDR, part of the New Deal, passed the Rural Electrification Act, and fast forward 15 years later to 1950, 90% of rural communities were electrified. So flipped on its head from 10 to 90. One of the most effective federal programs of all time, right? And so fast forward to now, and electric co-ops are serving 92% of federally recognized persistent poverty counties, so the people with the least amount of means. They have 9 of the 15 most polluting power producers in the U.S. are electric co-ops. They have all this antiquated fossil fuel infrastructure. And for that, they're collectively are in debt $100 billion for this fossil fuel infrastructure. And so the folks that are there are paying the highest amount for electricity as a result. So, you've got the people with the fewest amount of means paying the most for electricity and bearing some of the worst burden for the privilege. Right? But now this is transitioning. Like, we were successful a few years ago at getting $10 billion, or 11 initially, in the Inflation Reduction Act for new renewable energy for these electric co-ops nationwide, leveraging a total $40 billion investment. So that's an exciting thing. I mean, it's like a historic transformation. But what we're seeing is that all of the gains we've made with new renewable energy nationwide in the last 30 years is getting eaten up by crypto and data centers.
Right.
Right? We got Javon's paradox here.
Yeah.
Where, no matter how much new energy we produce, it's going to get consumed.
Right.
And now the electric co-ops they're not set up to be able to provide electricity for these data centers, but they've got a federal charter that forces them to accommodate them. Right. And so now all those member owners are going to, unless there's something done, are going to bear the burden once again, the financial burden of paying more for electricity because there's a data center that's coming to their neighborhood.
Right. Well, it's about meeting needs in a different way, really, what we're looking at. And that's the circular economic trick here. Whenever they do studies on highway management, it's like if there's a highway that's crowded, it's like, oh, let's add a couple of lanes. All that you do is you make it more crowded. More people use it, and it's like back to where you were, where you find if you have a crowded highway, give it less lanes. And it kind of discourages people from going there, and then things kind of balance out in another way. It's really odd how that works, but it's kind of the same way with this. If you're thinking in a very linear cause and effect consumption, using a consumption model to understand energy, then you just keep adding and building more and adding and building more. But when you're thinking of your energy as part of a circular economy, then all of a sudden, like the addition of a Walmart to a community with major sharing libraries seems silly. The addition of a data center to an energy grid of community fucking farmers, it's like, oh, this doesn't make sense, does it?
Yeah.
Except apparently the way to enforce that, what do we call it, hegemony, seems to be pass a law in D.C. that says states are no longer allowed to regulate data centers. And people in a state are not even allowed to know what company is building the data center. So, as long as the monarchs have control over the law.
Well, and right now we're also seeing private equity is moving in to start buying investor-owned utilities, right? Because they know there's going to be this guaranteed income now coming in from the data centers.
Right.
And so we're having to figure out how do we fight off the privatization of electric co-ops, because there's going to be this major profit incentive for folks like that as well.
Right. And it feels like we're all the way back to Rockefeller. We're all the way back to what Adorno was talking about, that it's the oil industry driving the whole thing. Right? So the oil industry, they loved crypto, right? Because, we're burning stuff. Oh, no. And then it got all the way to NFTs, and then it kind of crashed. It's like, oh, no, what are we going to do? Sam Bankman-Fried's in jail. There's no more crypto. AI. Okay, great. And then we get all that. I mean, AI is fun. I just talked to Cameron Berg here. It's cool stuff, but this relentless drive to build more and more and more, it starts to feel like it's not just, Musk or Sam Altman wanting, a friend to talk to who's not going to be mean to them, but that there's a giant energy industry that's looking for ways to counteract our conservation.
Yeah, and you look at the S&P 500 and it's top 7 companies that are doing AI that are propping the entire thing up as though everything else is falling apart, right? So we've got this false sense of growth that's just not happening right now. We're in this constriction and people are feeling it, right? So where it doesn't matter what it says on the stock market, like people can feel that something's wrong, right? They feel that just overarching is something's not right, that the rich are getting richer, the poor are getting poorer, that we've got the greatest economic divide in, I think, the history of the world at this point in time, right? So now go back further back than the Rockefellers, like we're at one of the
this is
inequality
Alexander the
is
Great
just
worse. This is as bad as it's ever gotten.
Which is why we need to figure out how to share more. Right? And live better, because we're not going to be able to get it economically, at least not for the short term. And stuff, I think, there's another crash that's going to come. We know that, right? And when the bottom falls out, it's the relationships that you have that makes or breaks whether or not you survive, whether or not you thrive. And so now is the time. I mean, the time was what they say. There's the proverb, like the best time to plant a tree was 50 years ago. The second best was 10 years ago, and the third best is right now. Right? And so same thing goes with this. Like, we need to start getting these projects going. And that's one of the things we try to do at Shareable is to help people do that. So we've published all these, 4,500 stories about the ways that people are sharing resources around the world, all those how-to guides. But what we found was that people read them, that's inspiring, that's great, that's happening over there. I'd love to do that in my own community, but how do you get over the hump to actually do it? So we've been making this significant pivot, over the last couple of years at Shareable, where we've almost stopped publishing. We've greatly reduced the amount of stories, promoting the ones that we do a lot more heavily and making sure we get them out there, quality over quantity. But we've shifted so much of our programmatic, ability to supporting people to replicate the things that are already working in other places. Building collabs where people can come together and learn from the experts. And that's actually how the Library of Things Toolkit came together, is that we didn't write that from scratch. We hosted 12 workshops and got the experts on each different aspect of what it takes to run a library of things. And we had them come together week after week. We had 350 people join us on this journey from around the world that all wanted to start libraries of things. They got to learn in real time. And then we adapted all of those workshops into the toolkit, right? So it's a crowdsourced work, right? And it's representative of the community, and there's no reason for us to replicate to recreate the wheel. Like, it's already out there. We don't have to be the experts on all things. We just bring all the experts together.
And the thing is, it's so already out there. I think that this is important. I mean, because here we are, 2 white, college-educated, kind of lefty, Bernie people, talking about this stuff. And people could watch this saying, oh, well, yeah, that'll work in Ithaca, with the hours, or it'll work in Berkeley or Park Slope. But what about in real America? What about, what about in the hood? What about in urban places? What about in poor places? What about in Mexican towns, in America? And it's like, first, I'd say read Jessica Nembhard's book, Collective Courage. Which shows, look at what the Panthers did. Look at what the enslaved Americans did. Read W.B. Du Bois. I mean, this is not college-educated white dude science. This is the way that the poor, the campesinos, the zapatistas, the Americans, this is the way people of color have managed their disenfranchisement from capitalism. It's how we blue state white progressives now can copy their techniques in order to live through our own disenfranchisement from capitalism. But it's like, we're just good at this. We're white boys went to college. We're good at this, and PDFs and podcasts and promoting this and yelling at politicians. we got that part, right? We got that part. We got AOC. We got stuff. We're working it. We're working it. But this is not, you know what I mean? This is not some Berkeley thing. You know, you don't have to know how to make solar panels to begin sharing in your community.
You don't, but and it's what humans have always done. As soon as we created tools, we shared tools with others. It made more sense.
Until very recently, it's what humans have
it's
always done.
It's
default.
Pan cultures,
right. Yeah.
does racially, whatever it is, like that's how we have all survived. I mean, you don't survive otherwise. You don't survive the winter if you don't have a community to do so.
Yeah.
Right?
Read Glenn Isaac.
Yeah.
Food sharing was the thing that actually allowed Homo sapiens to happen.
And actually, I mean, I think sharing food, sharing a meal is one of the best icebreakers for building community, right? And that's why
stone soup. Tell me
right?
about that.
Yeah. So stone soup, it's my favorite story. Like, I grew up with a kid. It's a folktale. It, first went into print in the 1700s in France, soupe de caillou. It's known in the Nordic regions as nail soup. My wife is Spanish. She grew up with it as axe soup, like axe head, right? So it's like a mineral, like hard thing. Yeah. But the story was, this woman who put it in print in 1700s, she was a collector of oral folk tales, right? It goes back much farther than that. And the story goes that there was a traveler. And there was a traveler trying to get home after a great war. And because this long, prolonged war had been happening for so long, there was this famine that had taken place. And it was not just a famine of food, but also a famine of spirit. And everybody kind of pushed each other away. They were kind of afraid of their neighbors, afraid someone might take advantage and steal the thing they had. And as a result, they were able to grow a little bit of this or a little bit of that, but everybody was malnutrition, the whole deal. Malnourished, that's the word I was looking for. And so here we have our traveler trying to get home, and they come to a village and knock on the door, and they ask for a little place to stay or something to eat, and the person say, there's nothing for you here. Move on to the next town, move on to the next village. You're not welcome. And so it happened again and again and again from village to village, right? And after a little while, our traveler started to realize that what the war didn't do to them, the road would, and they weren't going to make it home to their village alive. And so they start thinking about it. They come up with a clever plan, and this is similar to like the coyote stories, and many different native traditions where there's this kind of trickster, right? Yeah. And this is the trickster starts to come out in this person as a survival mechanism, which the trickster often does come out when it comes to survival. And so the next village that our traveler came to knocked on the door, same story, get out of here. And our traveler says, you know what? Don't worry about me. I'm going to go in the town square and I'm going to make some stone soup. Well, this person at the door, all they heard was that there's some stranger in town that's going to be making soup, right? And that's the rumor that spread to everybody around the village. And so our traveler goes into the town square and draws some water out of the communal well, which fortunately is there, and lights a fire under their pot. And as the water begins to heat, one by one, everybody from the village comes to show up to see what's going on with this traveler and this soup, right? So once everybody is gathered, our traveler reaches into their pouch and they pull out a stone. They make sure everybody can see the stone and they drop it in the pot. And after a moment, to build up some anticipation around that stone soup, they dip their spoon in and breathe in that aroma, take a little sip and say, this is some good stone soup. But what would be better is some stone soup with cabbage. Well, sure enough, one of the people in the village has a little bit of cabbage and they say, I've never had stone soup before and I've got some cabbage and that sounds pretty good. And so they go get their cabbage and bring it back and chop, 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 into the pot it goes. Once again, our traveler now letting a little bit of anticipation build for the stone soup with cabbage, and they take a little sip and they say, this is some good stone soup with cabbage. But this one time I had some stone soup with some cabbage and a little bit of spiced beef. That was stone soup that was fit for a queen. My goodness, never had anything that was fit for a queen before. And sure enough, somebody had a little bit of spiced beef and they got their beef and brought it back and chop, 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 in the pot it went. And so it went with carrots and potatoes and onions and garlic and leeks and greens. And pretty soon, every single person in the village had brought something to contribute to the soup. And in the end, they were fed, they were nourished. The soup was delicious, but they were fed by the community, of the coming back together, of the tying those community fabrics together, weaving them together. So they had a huge party, a party like they hadn't celebrated probably in years, right? And they made sure that our traveler had a great place to stay. And the next morning, the whole village gathered to send our traveler on the way, like this amazing person that had brought community back together. They made sure that they had some food. And as the traveler was about to leave, they begged and pleaded. They said, please leave us this magic stone. Like, we need this magic stone. And there's a number of different tellings of this story. And there's one telling where the traveler says, fine, I'll sell you this magic stone of mine, and gets what they can extract from the community, and then hightails it down the road before they realize the ruse. I don't like that version. The version of the story that I like is that the traveler says, okay, fine, I'm going to give you this magic soup stone, but remember that it's magic. And if one of you, just one of you tries to make the soup all by yourself, not only will it not work, but the magic will be lost forever. And so the community was forced to come back together again and again and again and make the soup. And remember, last time we had the soup, it doesn't quite taste like it did before. Dave brought those onions before. Like, we should go knock on the door at Dave's and see if we can get those onions from him to make that soup again. Oh, that other person brought the tomatoes, and that really gave a nice little base to the soup. Like, we got to get, those Jamie, we got to get those tomatoes from Jamie, right? And they brought the community together. And, everywhere that traveler went on their way home, they continued to make stone soup and reconnect their communities one by one by one. So, there's a lot of different lessons for this story. And for me personally, I've been telling this story now for years. There was a stone soup festival that happens in Northern California. It's still going on to this day. And I snuck into the first one when I was 11 years old, right? And they had come into close to my community. I heard there was this festival, and like my buddy and I, we were 11-year-olds, tried to go through the front door, and they wanted $25. We said, forget that. Yeah. So we got our bicycles and we rode around the back and snuck into the woods and got to experience hundreds of people coming together to make a stone soup with music and celebration and whole thing. And, I grew up with this story as a child, and it just blew my mind that what was on the page all of a sudden was coming out in reality. And if this story, there's a built-in moral and everything here can be embodied, what else can be embodied that seems like it's fantastical, right? That seems like it's made up. So fast forward to 2013, and I was hired by Occupy Monsanto to organize the Michael Taylor takeover in Washington, D.C. Who's Michael Taylor? That's what everybody said. Nobody knew who Michael Taylor was, right? So Michael Taylor, he worked for Monsanto, and he got GMOs approved by the first Bush administration, the substantially equivalent. We can release these GMOs without having to do any specific testing. It's just, we'll let Monsanto do the testing themselves and give us the results.
Perfect.
He then got bovine growth hormone approved through the USDA, another Monsanto product. After that, he was, chief lobbyist for Monsanto for a while. And then Mr. Obama made him our national food safety czar, created a new position for him at the USDA, right? Or at the FDA, excuse me, at the FDA.
It's almost like hiring Goldman Sachs to deal with the financial crisis.
Yeah, basically. So the idea was, when Obama had gotten reelected, there was a number of different cabinet heads that were getting transitioned out, from one administration to the next. And so let's do this Michael Taylor takeover. Well, I put out the word to a bunch of the organizers I knew around the East Coast. They wanted buses and vans. We're going to do this huge action in D.C. And all my buddies organizer buddies were like, hey, I've spent 2 weeks trying to promote this thing. I'm not going to be able to fill a bus. Like, nobody knows who Michael Taylor was. And it was too aggressive, right? Like Occupy Monsanto doing the Michael Taylor takeover. Like, you just even say it. Like, is that actually going to bring people together? Is that building the thing that we want, cops, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's exactly, well, this brought them out too. But we decided to frame it. My girlfriend at the time, we'd been doing a bunch of organizing in California for GMO labeling, and she'd come up with the idea of doing an eat-in. And we didn't get around to doing it in California, but I was like, I went to the organizers at Occupy Monsanto. I was like, hey, I want the gig. I've been working on this for a few weeks. It's not going to happen, but I got an idea. And I said, let's do an eat-in at the FDA. And they're like, oh yeah, like part be in, part sit in. Like, that sounds great. And I said, let's take it one step further and do a stone soup. Well, we had people come from 14 different states, all bus, van, whole thing, hundreds of people. We went to, in DC, there was this famous soup chef, and he has this giant pot. I mean, it's like the size 2 full-grown humans can get inside. It's so big in the window. And we went and talked to him. We said, hey, can we borrow your pot for this action that we're doing? Yeah. And he said, I'll do you one better. I'll come and lead the soup. So we got this top soup chef in DC, this huge pot that could feed hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people. And we show up and we send an invitation to the FDA to come join us for soup.
Right.
We knew they weren't going to come, but we sent them the invitation. We let them know we were coming. So we show up that day and there's 27 stormtroopers out front waiting for us, blocking the road so we can't pull over the whole thing. So we drive around the block, get behind, unload our vans, put it on our carts, and come rolling up with our pots and our flames and food and our sound system and everything. And myself and the lead organizer from Occupy Monsanto get pulled aside separately by two of the lead, Homeland Security guys, full armor, gear, machine guns, whole thing, waiting for some people to make soup. And so I start talking to the guy that's pulled me aside, and he's got his hands up underneath his bulletproof vest. Now, for some people, that might be scary. You're like, oh, where's his hands? Maybe he's got a weapon or something underneath there. I knew that it was a de-escalation technique, that he had his hands up here under his bulletproof vest so they weren't down by his taser and his gun. And I said, hey, you've got your hands underneath your vest. That's a de-escalation technique. And all of a sudden, he was completely disarmed. He was like, you know about de-escalation? And I said, yeah. I was like, yeah, I teach workshops for organizers, who are going to protests on how to deal with police. He was like, I teach workshops for civilians on how to deal with the police. And so we all of a sudden had this common ground, right? Like right there. It was like the energy of the thing was completely changed. And I said, you know why we're here today, right? He was like, oh yeah, I know about the colony collapse of the bees and the this and the that. And I was like, so, one could argue that we've got a pretty good point. He was like, yeah, you could. And I said, look, we're going to have an event like you've never, ever seen before. There's going to be grandmothers. There's going to be children. There's going to be artists and this and that and the whole thing. And that's what it was. We had designed the action so that if anybody came for 15 minutes, they'd be able to see what we were talking about and walk away understanding what we wanted, right? It was for an action in Eden for food democracy.
Right. And the idea was what? You did a stone soup, meaning people bring food to throw in the soup.
So everybody who came got together. We had a microphone, big sound system going towards the FDA. And everybody who came while we were making the soup got to get on the microphone and say where they'd come from, why they'd come, what they brought for the soup, but then also deliver their message to the FDA. It was this incredibly empowering event. We had people that had never been a protest before that came to this and was like, I'm not going to miss another one.
Right.
People that were like, there was a 7-year-old woman that came to me like, I can't believe I've been afraid my entire life to protest. Like, I'm not going to miss, that really touched me, right? Yeah. And so it was so everyone got fed, and we had seed swaps that we were doing, and a teach-in on the lawn.
Right.
And in the end, all those cops left before we did.
Right.
Because they realized that all right, we're coming with this pro-social meeting. Now, we designed it, as I mentioned before, so that if somebody just came for a minute, we could get our message out. Well, Dana Milbanks showed up. Dana Milbanks is one of the lead op-ed reporters for the Washington Post. And he hated Occupy, absolutely hated Occupy, and would just wrote hit piece after hit piece after hit piece after hit piece. And he came ready. He was like, all right, this is awesome. I'm going to write this whole thing. This was, this is 2013, right? So this is a couple of years after Occupy, still looking to keep his beat going, right? And so I sat down with him. I had no idea who he was. It was before I started. It was my early days of me doing media work, and I didn't know to ask who I was talking to. Right? It's like, oh, you're a press? Sure, I'll tell you whatever you want. And so I had my whole spiel set, and doggone it, he wrote what I wanted to write, word for word, except for 2 sentences that he had to get in there, just jabbing Occupy, that we argued about in person. He still put that in the piece. That piece got syndicated by over 100 newspapers all across the United States.
Right.
And if we had done some super aggressive Michael Taylor takeover, that never would have happened. That message wouldn't have gotten out, right? And we were able to use this, what we did in DC, to ripple out across the country to let people know about why this was an issue that they should be thinking about. And so it's those creative interventions that are so important. So for that, again, we're talking about the stone soup. Somebody engraved non-GMO soup stone on this like 2-pound river rock that we used as the stone for the soup. And I've carried that ever since. And I've done stone soups all over the world. I just got in from Belgium, where I was last week, doing a stone soup in Brussels and another one in Antwerp. So I get to travel around. Someone books me to do a speaking engagement somewhere, and I say, well, let's go out in the community. Let's do a stone soup. And everyone's super, it's commenting in action. It's like a pathway to get started. Everybody gets to bring something. Everyone gets to be a part of it.
And the thing I like about it, both as an activity and a metaphor, it's kind of like the other side of the emperor's got no clothes story.
Yep.
Except because the emperor has no clothes, there's nothing but us. Yep. In some ways it's beautiful for the emperor to go, I'm naked here with all of you. Yep. That the stone is not magic, that the magic is us.
Well, and that's, you think about alchemy, right? And trying to change something that's has no worth into gold.
Right.
And this story shows that you had gold in your hand all along. You just didn't realize. Right? Like what you have is of such worth. And we just have to, sometimes with a little bit of trickery, remind people that they have a lot.
Right.
And,
it's the Wizard of Oz, but you do pull back the curtain though.
Yeah.
You pull back because otherwise you keep your guru power.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You pull back the curtain and just go, hey, it's just Team Human. It's you. It's you all, not us. Well, dude, Tom Llewellyn, thanks for being here and mixing a little stone soup with us. I want everyone to. What's the easiest way to get? Just go to shareable.net.
Shareable.net. And
they're just sharing this.
Download it for free.
You don't get to buy it.
Not only do you get it for free, but everything we publish at Shareable is published with a Creative Commons license. So anybody can take it, remix it, adapt it for their own community.
Right. So you can take this stuff and then stick it in the articles that you write for other things. It's all here. Just credit them. But share and share alike. Thanks for being here, for sharing yourself with us. It's been good to know you all these years. And Neil Gurnflow before. You're in a fine lineage of sharing. And finally, I mean, we're at the time when sharing will not only may prevent the coming collapse from happening, but at the very least, it will make that collapse a whole lot more gentle for a whole lot more of us.
And hopefully, an economic collapse doesn't have to necessarily mean a societal collapse.
Right.
And maybe we're able to weather that as a society so we don't have the environmental collapse from this prolonged, economic extraction.
Imagine a world where if your bank card didn't work to get money out of that machine, you'd still be okay.
We're building it. People are building it all over the world right now. They're remembering, how to share, how to connect, and how to common.
Exactly. And building that world not only is safer and more secure, it's so much more fun. It's sexy. It's weird. It's alive. And it's available.
And gives us all a sense of purpose.
Yeah. Oh, I got purpose. I got purpose either way. Just breathing is a good enough purpose for me. But even more.
Yeah.
Even more. All right. Thanks a lot.
Yeah. Thanks so much.
And thank you for being on Team Human. It's never, ever, ever too late to become a supporting member of the team by going to teamhuman.fm and clicking on support. Otherwise, just listen, click or share or like or do whatever the thing that you're on allows you to do to just be with us. Team Human is produced here at MCM Studios. I'm Douglas Rushkoff, and you've been on Team Human, our last best hope for peeps. I'm Douglas Rushkoff, and I am a fan of Everyone's Earth, maker of Kobe laundry buds and Kobe dryer sheets like these. The reason I'm a fan is because these are products. We don't even want to call them products. These are processes. They are invitations to be part of a living, regenerative process through which you can clean your laundry and change your baby or dry your clothes in ways that work in harmony with the planet instead of just consuming petroleum and turning it into plastic and poisoning everyone and everything. It's time to get on board, join this mission-driven company in its effort to end the wanton consumption and exploitation of resources and help engender a society that regenerates and respirates and reincarnates along with everything else.